If I fall silent, it means they succeeded.
In the FBI records, labeled as Martin Luther King's final speech, the voice heard that night didn't belong to him. 1968. Spring had come to America, turbulent and uncertain. The streets of Memphis were tense. Vietnam protests had split the nation in two, and civil rights stood hand in hand with hope and rage, impossible to separate. King had come to the city to support the garbage workers' strike. He was exhausted, but resolute. When he arrived at his hotel, there was a smile on his face. "This speech will move them to their feet," he had said. In room 306 of the Lorraine Motel, the sound of a typewriter echoed off the walls. As King rewrote his final sentences, he gazed out the window. Dark rain clouds had swallowed the city. Beside him, his advisor Andrew Young sat taking notes in silence. But outside, hidden inside an electrical box, a small recording device flickered on and off. That device was connected to the FBI's secret COINTELPRO surveillance system. The voice on the tape belonged to King, yet it didn't. The words were different. The inflections were strange. It was as if someone had reconstructed his speech by imitating his voice. Richard Cole was an intelligent but questioning technician who worked for the FBI in those years. Born in Ohio, he had studied radio engineering before joining the military. He hated the idea of manipulating state records. In the early 1970s, he resigned on ethical grounds. But in 1984, while organizing old files, he found a tape. File M47, Altered Speech. King's name was written on the cover. When Cole listened to the recording, he recognized the voice at first, but then he noticed something. The tonality was different. The breath intervals were wrong. It was as if something that spoke like a human, but wasn't quite human, was there. In the initial analysis, the voice pattern showed 92% similarity, but the microphone artifacts didn't match at all. Cole requested access to DARPA's vocal simulation program. In the documents, he found a subsection titled Project Reverberate. The program's purpose: acoustic reconstruction of speeches deemed threats to national security. Simply put, it was using voice copying technology to control public messaging. As Cole examined the documents, two names caught his attention: Dr. Ruth Calder and Thomas Keene. Calder was a psychoacoustics expert who had consulted for the Pentagon in 1967. Keene was researching the effects of sound waves on human consciousness in DARPA laboratories. In one report, Calder had written, "The frequency structure of the human voice can neurologically direct emotional responses." In other words, voice wasn't just a message, it could be a weapon. Both researchers were removed from their positions shortly after. The official reason: security breach. But in their final notes, Cole found this: King's voice test completed. In 1991, Cole appeared on a radio program. For years he had remained silent, but now he spoke for the first time. "This recording isn't just surveillance," he said. "It's an attempt to rewrite history itself." As the program aired, the studio line was cut. Listeners were stunned. Some called Cole a hero, others called him a traitor. But weeks later, Cole's car was found burning in the Nevada desert. He was identified, but the cause of death was ruled traffic accident. The recording disappeared. Years passed. In 2012, a student performing archive restoration at the University of Georgia found an old box inside a dusty safe. There was a faded label on it, Copy MLK. When he played the cassette, there was a brief echo. But it wasn't King's voice speaking. It was Cole's. The real speech was never recorded because they silenced him before he could speak it. The student reported the recording to authorities, but weeks later, the file was sealed from access. DARPA's voice project has never been fully explained to this day. The acoustic manipulation research that began in the 1950s formed the basis of the reverberate system, developed for military communications to control morale. This system could reproduce a person's voice at the frequency level and blend it with the real voice at the perception level. It was the primitive ancestor of today's deepfake technology. 2024 Atlanta. In a restored radio building, 2 engineers were digitizing old tapes. In one recording, the wavelength deviated from human speech. But within the echo, there was a familiar tone. If I fall silent, it means they succeeded. It was that voice, Martin Luther King's voice. But these words had never appeared in any public speech. The Lorraine Motel is now a museum. Visitors stand silently in front of the room. Some say that at night they hear a faint static coming from inside, as if a voice is still echoing. The real speech is still ongoing. History is written not just by what happens, but by what is hidden. Martin Luther King's lost speech reminds us of something. Truth sometimes doesn't echo from a microphone. It resonates from within silence itself. If you found this story intriguing, don't forget to subscribe, because we will continue telling the parts of history that have been kept silent.